Good morning, Friday, 26th of June, recovery room update for you. From a beautiful blue sky, sunshine day, 30 degrees down here in the Moselle, and it's going to be 32 degrees later on today, so trust you well. Now, for my British colleagues and friends, they'll probably know the name or the brand Fray Bentos. And Fray Bentos make classically, they're pies that are sold in tins, and you can still buy them now in the supermarkets. They do the sort of steak pies and all this sort of thing. They used to make corned beef. They still might make corned beef, but the Fray Bentos is a name that is actually synonymous with not a famous, but a sort of a well-known tank battle in 1917 in World War One, the Battle of Passchendaele, which started in August 1917. And what happened was there was a tank crew that was headed by a Captain Donald Richardson and his crew of a total of 9 people in this tank. It was a Mark IV male tank. And back then in the First World War, they had male and female tanks. The male tanks had cannons sticking out the side, and female tanks didn't. Make of that, make of that what you will. But anyway, they were in a male tank heading across the muddy fields of Passchendaele and making an attack. And they were attacked, but they got disabled. And the tank was called Fray Bentos, and it was called Fray Bentos by Captain Richardson because it reminded him of a can of corned beef, which was, for those who know corned beef, it's sort of pressed meat inside a can, and he thought that was what the tank did to the guys inside it, apparently. And as a separate story, corned beef, there's no corn in corned beef, it's just got lumps in it, that's why it's called corn. But anyway, so Fray Bentos tank goes off across the mud plains, gets disabled, and of course the British troops, the infantry, get pinned down, and the infantry they actually withdraw and go back to their trenches, leaving the tank, the Mark IV male Fray Bentos tank, sat in no man's land, but being open to attack. So the German troops came out of the trenches, and they attacked the tank, and of course the tank is steel or metal, and they couldn't get in, and the tank decided to defend themselves, and they had a couple of machine guns, they had some rifles and pistols, limited water, limited food, limited ammunition, and they fought off for over 60 hours the German assault, and there were hand grenades going into the tank that were then thrown out. A lot of the German soldiers lost their lives because the the slits and the guns coming through. So these guys sat in this tank in the middle of a muddy field, almost on its side, fending off the German infantry for 2.5, 3 days. And then when they ran out of ammunition, ran out of food, they at night they came out of the tank through a hatch and crawled across muddy no man's land full of barbed wire and all sorts of dead bodies and all that sort of thing. Horrible. Made it back to British trenches, and I think one of the crew was killed. I think the rest of them were injured, but they made it back, and they were all given medals and for valour and this type of thing. And it's a poignant moment into British military tank history we're fighting off. But I think this story of Fray Bentos is what's happened to businesses, all us business owners out there. The last 3 months we've been sat in this tank in no man's land with limited resources, limited ammunition, and we've been fighting off all this pressure, whether it's to do with the coronavirus or it's to do with clients leaving or whatever it is. A lot of pressure, but now we're seeing the uplift is changing a little bit. We're seeing the restrictions being removed, and we can actually open the hatch and crawl out. Now, we might be injured, wounded, bloodied and bruised and battered, but we're still here. That's the main thing. We're still here, and we can now crawl back through a bit of mud as well. We can crawl out, get ourselves dusted down, and begin to make a recovery. So if you're thinking of your business and your commercial life, your career or your job, a lot of people, not just business owners, are being kicked and punched by this situation. But we can now get out of it. So think of the guys in the male Mark IV tank, but fighting in the dark and the mud, and total abject fear for over 60 hours. And the movie that was made, not about this, but was very similar. It was the Brad Pitt movie, the tank movie called Fury, which was based in the Second World War, the Sherman tank up against the SS troops. Similar sort of thing, but it was a real story, a true story of the Fray Bentos named tank. in World War One, and for 60 hours they battened down the hatches and fought everybody off. And just out of interest, Captain Donald Richardson, after he was given his medal, he went back and he took over another tank, and it was called Fray Bentos II, and he went back into battle again. That takes some doing, that takes some nerve and some bravery, or a lot of bravery. So full respect to those guys. But for us coming out of this now, we can now crawl out of our tank and get ourselves dusted down. It's not going to be pretty out there, but at least we can start making progress. So if you're having a tough time of it, you can Google it. Just Google Fray Bentos tank and you'll see the story. I think it's quite interesting, and it shows this sort of overcoming of odds and fighting on and keeping going, which we've all done. So the hatch is now open. We can crawl out, back across the mud, get yourself dusted down, and get ready to go back into battle again, but back into a more positive state of mind, perhaps. So there's my tip for a Friday. Have a fabulous weekend. We have a board meeting today with some clients, and I have a live TV webinar to do midday, and some conversations later on. So busy here, which is all very good. And we're having a nice relaxing weekend. Back to the garden again, I think. We still haven't got the keys. I can't believe how slow the notaries are in France to get these house deals done. But anyway, I'm assured it's all work in progress, and I'll keep you posted. So have a great day. Have a great weekend. I'll speak to you tomorrow on Saturday, and bye for now.